Title: AITA for cancelling on a group of very out-of-shape women who hired me to train and guide their hikes. Verdict: not the asshole. First off, I really am trying my best to be kind in how I describe this. I run a small hiking guide and training operation. I work with groups and individuals, helping them build up to longer or more difficult hikes. I've trained all kinds of people: total beginners, older folks, people with injuries, people who are overweight, you name it. I got an inquiry from a group called Women's Plus Adventures. Because it was during Pride Month, I assumed it was an LGBTQ+ group. I spoke with the head of the group, a woman I'll call Rachel. We went over everyone's hiking levels, what they'd done before, any medical issues, that kind of thing. They all filled out forms about their abilities and health. We agreed on a plan, they paid, and I started putting together an 8-week training schedule. Their big goal was to work up to a 14er by the end of the program. For anyone who doesn't know, that's a mountain over 14,000 feet. Some are brutal, some are relatively beginner-friendly. Based on what they all reported on their forms, I chose Gray's Peak. It's considered one of the easier 14ers and is very rewarding because of the beautiful valley and views. It's still a serious hike, but it's a common first 14er for people who are reasonably fit. When I showed up for our first group hike, I realized I'd misunderstood what Women's Plus meant. It wasn't LGBTQ+, it was plus-sized women. That was totally fine with me. I've worked with plenty of overweight clients before, including a pair of women in their 60s who still send me photos from their hikes. I know fitness comes in all shapes and sizes, and I consider myself very patient. And again, all of their forms said they were in good condition to start this plan. The first hike, though, was rough. I had intentionally started them on something very manageable, about 4 miles round trip, with 750 feet of elevation gain. This is the kind of hike I usually use as a baseline for beginners who say they're already walking regularly and doing some light exercise. Several of them showed up, ignoring almost everything on my prep list. I had sent very clear suggestions for attire, footwear, layers, water, snacks, and basic supplies. A few wore casual sneakers with no grip. One woman had a tiny purse instead of a day pack. Another brought almost no water. It was obvious they hadn't taken the prep seriously. Once we started hiking, the pace was extremely slow. One woman immediately complained that we were starting with something so strenuous and asked for a break every half mile. Another ate all of her snacks at the first rest stop, even though I'd explained we'd be out for several hours and needed to pace food and water. There were constant complaints. It was too hard, too long, too steep, too hot, too everything. What should have been a 23-hour outing took us about 6 hours. By the time we got back to the trailhead, everyone was exhausted and cranky. I pulled Rachel aside and gently asked if everyone had been completely truthful on their ability and health forms. I wasn't accusing them of lying, but I needed to understand what I was working with so I could adjust the plan. She insisted everything was accurate and got annoyed that I was even questioning it. When I suggested we scale back the 14er goal and aim for something smaller and more realistic, she was clearly offended. Her tone shifted, and she acted like I was insulting the whole group. I tried to keep it constructive. I gave them all homework, a brisk 1-hour walk every day, or at least most days, to build up their stamina before our next hike. Several of them literally laughed at me, like the idea of walking an hour a day was ridiculous. The second hike went even worse. The plan was to gradually increase distance and elevation over 8 weeks, but it was obvious they hadn't done any of the homework. People were more out of breath, more unprepared, and even more frustrated. The same issues with gear, pacing, and attitude came up again, only this time with more resentment, like they expected me to somehow make it easy without them putting in any effort. After that second hike, I sat with it for a bit and realized this was not going to work. I didn't feel safe taking them toward a 14er, and I didn't feel like they respected my expertise or the process. So I called Rachel and told her I thought it was best if we ended the arrangement. I offered to refund their money, prorated for the 2 hikes we'd already completed. She completely lost it. She accused me of being fatphobic, of mocking them behind their backs, of not believing in them. She said I was giving up on them because of their size, and that a real coach would have stuck it out. She refused to hear anything about safety, preparation, or realistic timelines. I processed the refund anyway and ended contact. A few days later, my social media started blowing up. I was getting flooded with hateful messages and comments from people I didn't know, clearly friends or followers of the group. I was called every name you can imagine. People said I discriminated against plus-sized women, that I humiliated them, that I was a terrible person and a terrible trainer. I felt awful. I really do want people of all sizes and backgrounds to enjoy hiking. I've successfully trained overweight clients before, including those 2 women in their 60s who now do long-distance hikes. I know what it looks like when someone is trying, even if they're struggling. With this group, it felt like they wanted the badge of, we did a 14er without putting in the work, and I wasn't willing to risk their safety or my reputation on that. When I talked it over with some people in my life, a few told me I handled it badly. They said I should have powered through, given them 3 chances instead of 2, or had more patience and understanding that not everyone is a natural athlete. Others said I did the right thing by backing out before someone got hurt. So now I'm second-guessing myself. Was I too harsh? Should I have kept trying, even though they weren't following instructions or being honest about their abilities? AITA?